And he also said there's not room enough in Boston, which
I wonder if it's just like geography, like you're talking about the size of Boston.
Maybe that's a hint about where a new arena would be.
Revere. Wiggy's going to get his way. It's going to be the Revere Celtics.
Everett, though. I mean, over at the Encore, which is where they're talking about building that Rev Stadium, which will probably never happen.
Yeah, because technically he's right. Well, there's not two in Boston.
It's not in Boston.
There's one in Everett.
I mean, his answer would be nonsense because, again, there's not enough room to fill out all the acts and concerts.
Yeah,
because
I don't think it would be all that rare. Like, if you look around all professional sports, I wonder how many of them are actually in that place. I mean, the LA Angels of Anaheim famously are not in Los Angeles.
Right.
In fact, really not all that close, right, to Los Angeles. But they want the name.
Right.
I mean, the name will never change, but it's just like, how far would you be willing to go? How many years away is this?
To me, Everett's pushing it. Like, I don't even think I'd really want to go over there to watch the Celtics. I would, but I would rather have them at the Garden than there, I think.
Well, if Bill Chisholm's also looking at this as a long-term investment, then, all right, in the immediacy, you can get rid of Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Mm-hmm. But then if you never have your own building, like at what point are you going to really be able to make a significant profit?
Well, and you said this earlier too. How do you make it worth $10 billion? How do you make it worth $12 billion? You got to own the arena.
I would think.
Well, although maybe not. Maybe the Celtics just proved that. They went for $7 billion.
Well, so when Steve Ballmer, correct me if I'm wrong, when he bought the Clippers, spent a ton of money on the Clippers, and they shared a building until they didn't.
Yeah, now they have their own arena.
Yeah.
Intuit or whatever. What's it called? They have their own arena. Yeah.
Now, Los Angeles is bigger than Boston, obviously, but I don't know. That's a two NBA team town, and they were able to split the arena and not share it. So, I mean, I think ideally, maybe he's not going to say it publicly yet, but I don't know why Bill Chisholm wouldn't want his own building. It's crazy to think that you would. Now, he's going to weigh it all and kind of figure it out and be like, all right, what's the most we can make doing this and like all that other stuff. But for sure, you'd want to branch out.
See, I think so too. I just. Even if he wants to do it, it's not going to happen overnight.
No,
I
that's
mean, that,
for sure
that
true.
will take time. So, like, that is a longer-term thing. You're talking maybe 10 years. Like, I don't know how quick. How long did Ballmer own the Clippers before he moved them? How long is it Joe Lacob? How long did they own the Warriors before they moved them from Oakland to downtown San Francisco? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I would look at those timelines, and that's probably what you're looking at to even hope to build a new arena here. And, look, I don't know how construction is in San Francisco. I imagine it's significant and busy just like it is here. I don't know how construction is in L.A. I'd imagine the same thing. But, I would look at that and say that's probably a similar timeline. 617-779-7937. Bill Chisholm. That's apparently what we're all calling him now. Bill, I do like that.
I've read it in a lot of spots.
I feel like I was ahead of the curve.
Yeah, you really were.
Had a quote to Shams yesterday. He said, the team is in a great place right now, and I'm very sensitive to that. Wyc, Brad, and Joe have done amazing jobs. My approach is to win and raise banners.
Yes.
That's in the near term and the long term.
All right.
I bleed green, he said.
Really? Just like Doc Rivers.
I love the Celtics.
Yeah.
When the opportunity came up, I couldn't pass it up. Wyc has done an incredible job, so why would you mess that up? I've had a couple of sit-downs with Brad, and it's been about aligning our goals and extending the window of this team. So he's saying the right things.
All right. Yeah, it's all going to be about the actions. We can all just kind of guess as to what it's going to be. And this offseason, especially with Wyc putting sort of a June-July timeline on it, we'll find out for sure. I don't think anybody knows, with the exception of Bill Chisholm, exactly what they're going to do. But also it might depend on what this team does, how they look. One of the scenarios we brought up is, let's say Porzingis deals with a bunch of injuries again. They win a title again, and he plays a handful of games. You're saying to yourself, all right, now are we getting our money's worth with this guy?
Right.
Or can we win without him? Oh, wait a minute, we have one without him?
Does Bill come in? My guy Bill.
Yeah.
Does he come in and does he say, yeah, we've won 2 titles without this guy? What are we paying him for?
Right.
I mean, maybe.
It's like, guys, and you guys are telling me about the basketball penalties here, so let's get out of this apron. Let's try to
get rid of him.
And still be competitive. And that's the thing, is like, how many corners can you cut while still being competitive? And is it easier or more difficult? If they win, is it more difficult to make big changes, or if they lose, is it more difficult?
I think if they win, it's more difficult.
Yeah, right. Because you're going for a three-peat or a cell trick.
The one you raise, no, C-Speed.
Yeah, C-Speed.
The one you raise with Porzingis, maybe the exception. Like if he gets hurt and they win without him, maybe there's an exception there. But in general, no, winning will put pressure on to keep it together. And I think it's easier to stomach the luxury tax bills and everything else because you're winning.
Yeah.
You don't want to. I heard Courtney say this today. She's right. You don't want to come in, be the new guy, tear everything down, and the fan base will turn on you real quick.
Yeah.
They'll turn on you real quick.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So you can't be the guy who does that. If you lose, though, you might have an excuse. I mean, the Suns, right away when Ishbia bought that team, were they in the NBA Finals? Was it right after he came in? They had been to the NBA Finals and lost to the Bucks. And he's like, oh, we're going to contend. We're going to add all these pieces. And he's ready to tear it all down.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine he's very well liked there these days.
No, can't imagine. Which is also, I think Curtis was mentioned in this. One of the reasons, buddy.
Right.
Hey, Wick, why don't you go? You already have a relationship with, the Greg Hill Show in the city of Boston. Like,
Wick's
you
already
do this.
blaming Brad Stevens. He's already like, well, it's going to be up to Brad.
No, Brad's so good. Brad can do anything.
Yeah.
Brad's like, seriously?
In Brad we trust.
Is this going to push Brad back to college? Could be a question.
Good question.
Yeah.
617-779-7937. With the tournament going on, It is a time of year where I feel like yearly Brad Stevens has to reject some college that was interested in him. His name popped up with Duke a few years ago, didn't it?
Duke and Indiana.
It's popped up with Indiana a ton.
Always with Indiana.
And
those are the two that make the most sense to leave this job to go somewhere.
So
although he loves Butler, so maybe just right back to Butler.
The most sense, sure. I don't think it makes any sense for him to go back to college. Like I don't. People who worry about that, I don't understand why. Why would he want to go back to coaching?
So
anywhere,
coaching,
NBA.
Yeah, well, now with the nil money.
Well, that's interesting. Does he want to? I mean, maybe that's a good point. Maybe he would want to be a GM. I don't see him going back to coaching. Maybe he would be a GM.
See, I thought he was a coach. Like, I was shocked when he got moved to the front office.
Oh, me too.
What are you doing? I'm like, this makes no sense. And I was like, he'll be doing this for a year or two till his contract's out, and then he'll be right back in college.
Me too. I was wrong. Yeah, I did not think he'd be good at this.
And it's funny because it's not that I had a fear, because I was like, I don't think he's going to be good, so I think he'll be better off for everybody if he just goes back to college. And then I was so wrong. He's been so good at this. Right away, he was good at this. And, he made all kinds of trades. The draft is kind of TBD just because he hasn't really had draft picks or whatever. But the trades that he has made have been fantastic. He breaks through, wins a title, and they're going. But that was the other thing is, all right, new owner, new boss. What is that going to mean? Right now, they're all saying the right things. And even Bill Chisholm in one of his statements was talking about Stevens and Missoula, and everybody's great. That's a whole new working relationship. Maybe he doesn't want to pay him as much to do that job or whatever. Now there's going to be more challenges for Brad. So before it was like, assemble the best roster possible, and he did. And now if they're like, hey, assemble the best roster, but it needs to be within
these
number.
parameters.
Yeah. So it might just change it, or is he a guy that's just looking for another challenge? Like, that's the other thing you run into with some of these coaches. Like, really successful college coaches want to try it in the pros. Right, really successful pro coaches might want to be a GM or might want to do something, or at least go to another team and try it, or like a different group of guys. Like, you never know. I don't have an overwhelming fear, but I think it's another thing to sort of add to the pile of uncertainty with the team.
But coach or GM in college?
So
GM to me now makes. I didn't even think about that. Good job by Nick bringing that up. That makes way more sense than him coaching.
But I think the guy loves coaching. I'm surprised he's been away from it for so long. Could he do both? Could he be a Bill Belichick of college? Could he be a coach GM?
Isn't your life is so much more in order when you're not a coach, isn't it?
It is, but some of these maniacs that have coached their whole lives and just love out of bounds plays and love drawn up defenses.
But does he strike you as like a coaching maniac?
Does he? Did, well, when he was at Butler in his first few years in the league, especially when he didn't have a lot of talent, I thought of him as a guy that was just obsessed with coaching.
But now we've seen him in the front office, and you got a taste of that. And I imagine the money's good. The lifestyle is a million times better as a GM than it is as a coach day to day. It's way better as a professional coach than it is a college coach. You don't have to worry about recruiting or any of that nonsense.
This is a complete guess. We'd have to ask Brad Stevens about it. I bet when he was a coach, he had a lot of thoughts. And we saw this because the first day he took the job, he traded Kemba Walker so fast that your head would spin. But when he was a coach, was he thinking, here are all the moves I would make? Mm-hmm. Versus now as a GM, watching the games, I bet he's thinking, well, I would call a timeout. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I bet he's
with
like,
Missoula, you have to be.
He's constantly doing the other job while he's doing it.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know what he would want to do. I think he should have this job for pretty much as long as he wants it. But I don't know what the new relationship's going to be like with the new boss and everything else.
Would there be any? Well, that's true, too. And it's important. Chisholm has highlighted this in a bunch of different interviews, but he's like, I met with Brad Stevens. Brad Stevens was in on, you brought this up yesterday,
I
was
read
in
that
on
somewhere.
all the interviews, or not interviews.
The owner meetings.
Yeah, all of the meetings with the different ownership groups. So that speaks to Brad being here, but you're right. Maybe there's a conflict somewhere with new ownership.
But think
maybe,
about
perhaps.
that. Like, think about that. Like, if Brad Stevens, who coached Jaylen Brown, then kicked up to the front office and watched Jaylen Brown turn into the player that he is, sign him to, at the time, the biggest deal in basketball history. And if he's told you have to trade him, is he loving that?
No.
So I wonder if that kind of, he's like, all right, I'm going to go do something else.
I don't see him going back to coaching personally. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But would he go be like the GM at Indiana, where it's like him and Tracy can go back to the Hoosier State,
yeah, right,
go back to where they want to be.
Maybe
you can have a cushy gig and you spend some money recruiting college players. I mean, maybe I could see that. I don't think he's going anywhere soon. Like I don't.
No, I think the next few years, let's play like they were kept saying. Wyc Grousbeck is going to be the governor for 3 years, like minimum 3 years. They're like, all right, we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll be 4.
No,
but let's see. So it'll be 3. So there's sort of a transition. So it's not like Brad's going to have all new people around him.
Who goes first, Brad or Jaylen?
Let's see.
Jaylen. I think Jaylen goes before Brad. If I had to kind of budget out, like Tatum
honestly, maybe at the same time. Maybe Brad's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, you have to.
Fudge this. I'm out of here. Yeah. Maybe there's some of that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what Brad's contract is either. We know what Jaylen's contract is. He's signed for 4 years after this one. He's locked in for the long haul. So, I guess I would say. Yeah, you might be right. Might be Jaylen.
I mean, that's how if I was wagering on it, that's what I'd do. 617-779-7937. Although my wagering has not gone so hot here in the last, really more than 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a cold streak.
Well.
We can talk more Celtics if you want to jump in. 617-779-7937. We can get to the Patriots draft. Should they be considering moving up in the first round? We'll get to that with all your thoughts next.